There you go. I think now you can hear me. Can you hear me, Ann?
Yep, now I have it. Thank you.
We're all in the Stone Age with technology. Learning. So anyway, welcome everybody to the 2022-2023 school year. We're really excited to welcome all the students back to RIMSL. We're looking forward to hearing all of the information that Chad has to share with us. My name is Carrie Olson, and I serve on the Denver Public Schools Board of Education, and I'm the president of RIMSL. And so we'll maybe go to you, and we'll introduce ourselves and go around.
I'm Becky Myers. I'm director on Douglas County Public Schools.
Angela Christensen, and I serve in Wilson Public Schools.
And we'll go to Ann.
Ann Egan, Cherry Creek School District.
And I'd like to mention that we have two board members who, due to unforeseen circumstances, could not join us today. Both Brianna Nesta and Michelle Ortiz had things come up. It's the beginning of the school year in our districts, and I know that they'll catch up with us later. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order and turn it back over to Chad.
Right. So Ann, can you see the screen share now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And so that should also be broadcasting live. You have three documents in your packets today. You have your agenda there, which was sent in advance. And then you have two pieces of material that are important for today's work. The first being our student achievement overview, which is a snapshot. And then you have a copy of these slides as well, if you'd like to take any notes. Appreciate Carrie with our welcome call to order. As always, these are public meetings. We are recording and broadcasting live on YouTube. We are doing technology testing here with a new device, and we will be in a larger classroom space at our next meeting. Go ahead and move here into back to school. So I met with Carrie last week, and I am knocking on the table because this has truly been the best back to school year we have had in my 19 years of serving in education. It's probably due to coming out of a period of time that has, during these few weeks of school, have always had kind of a little bit of tumultuous start of, are we masking? Are we not masking? Can we open? Can we not open? Can we run sports? Can we not run sports? We've been building a building. We've been doing all these things. And at the same time, we've been trying to shepherd our kids and listen to our teacher voice in what needs they have. Last year, we met with teachers and they said, what we really need is ample time to plan. We all know that if we won the Powerball, we could not buy ourselves time, and we could not buy time for our teachers. And what we did is we surveyed them, collected some information, and we created a new start to our school year. And right now it has really grounded us. I think our teachers have found joy and peace in being teachers and educators and coming back, being new to the profession, feeling prepared with the material that they need. And so some things we did. We broke our one-day RIMSL 101 training into 3 days, and we spanned that over the course of a weekend. So a Friday, then you got a little break, and then you were here Monday, Tuesday. And it really gave those teachers a cohort of individuals to work with, 6 new educators in the room, getting to ask questions of one another, getting to ask questions of our instructional coach, a very safe environment to learn and ground yourself at school. We then came back from that, and before we jumped into the work of curriculum planning, we went on a staff retreat. We went to the Upper Colorado River. We loaded up onto those 16-foot rafts with all of our gear, no cell phone service, 19 miles, 2 backcountry campgrounds, and we made our way down the river with 33 people. It's an amazing time to connect. It's an amazing time to build community. It's an amazing time to get to know your colleagues, to work in small groups, to model initiatives, to model the work that we do with our kids when we're out in the field, and just truly a time to decompress from the work that we're getting ready to dig into. Then we jumped into a 3-day curriculum expedition planning camp. We had a guest, former teacher, DU graduate, come in and serve as a secondary instructional coach to do expedition planning with teachers. We have 3 of these camps this year. We have this one. We have one the 2 days prior to the Thanksgiving holiday, and then we have another one post President's Day holiday for 2 full days for teachers to work with multiple coaches in the room, plan their curriculum. And then we all just took a deep breath for 2 days, and we had final classroom prep. We had parents come in, visit teachers, open house. It just gives teachers the time to breathe before we started. And then we had back to school night last Tuesday, and we have another back to school night tonight. But this, I'll use the words of a new to Remsel teacher. When she saw the agenda, she goes, wow, she goes, I just thought 2 weeks of training was just going to be too much. And then she goes, after one day, she goes, I think I'm going to need every one of these days. So this was created from Teacher Voice. It was implemented in a way that tries to value planning and expertise, but also understanding that we have a lot of work to do as educators coming in. And I really think it made this year feel manageable for our staff. And I think it's made for an exceptional first week of school. So I'm going to go back to, I really enjoyed my teaching days. I really enjoyed, Open and Cimarron and Legend. I've enjoyed, starting the Monday, 3 days after Addison was born 11 years ago at Remsel. But this has truly been a time of, we've done some smart work, and it feels like we've really been benefited from it. So just wanted to share that with the board. Great team of leaders, great team of teachers. Parents are invested. It feels like an amazing time. We have more kids. We have 60 students enrolled in enrichments, and we have 60 students enrolled in middle school athletics. So over 30% of our population is participating in some type of extracurricular event that's been absent for a while. So school feels good. So I just wanted to share that to start. So sorry if your board meetings have not opened like that, but I would encourage you, the same as here, is there's really a lot more positive things happening in school than things that maybe get put into the headlines. And so great teachers doing great work, great leaders serving their communities, and kids are excited. When you have kids come running in, I've been counting it down. I'm like, all right, we're winning. So just thought that was I wanted the board to kind of share with you the state of where we are right now. And I know that this next series of slides is really data heavy. So please stop me to ask questions. I love living in this world. I love getting this information. I know that this information is imperfect, but at the same time, it really kind of gives us a roadmap of where we are, things to celebrate that teachers have accomplished over the series of the last 4 years, and places we need to improve, and our next steps around our unified improvement plan, our equity position statements, and disaggregated groups of data. So I will, unless the board has any.
I just have a comment. Would you share with everybody what you shared with me about the kindergarten? I know that you placed a big bet on having smaller kindergartens, and just initially what you've seen from the staff and the students.
Yeah, so we have, if you want to, I would encourage you, since you're here, if you want to take a brief tour afterwards, and I'll take you through those rooms. Kindergarten in a lot of your elementary school buildings is, it's a noisy first few days experience. You got kids that have not been to school and they're in tears, and kids that are bouncing off the walls, and everybody's trying to figure out this world of being 5 and being together. And most of our kindergarten classrooms across our districts are 22 to 28 kids, I would say, on average. And what we found in the pandemic was that was probably the place that we saw the biggest hardship of kids learning schools. And so we broke it down to 1 to 13. You walk in there, it is a tranquil experience of starting class, kids gathering in their small group, feels manageable for our teaching staff. One element to make that work meant that the kids had to come back together as one whole group to take their specials classes due to staffing and budget. And we were really worried about what that would look like. So we have our specialist teacher, and then we have an associate teacher go with the kiddos, and a veteran teacher who teaches physical education, which is a class where those kids normally go to unwind at the end of the day. Said it was truly amazing to see those kids come together. They were much calmer from having a calm experience all day. And so I'll kind of dig into that and the data results a little bit of, I think a few years out, we're going to see the gains of that in a truly huge way. 1 to 13 class sizes. Tell your governor, tell your representative, class size matters. It makes a huge difference. I know many of you around the table have been educators, so you know that. So good stuff happening. Jump into slides. You can follow along from the slideshow, or you can follow along from this data analysis here, and then I'll kind of break these out. This is our English Language Arts 2022 student achievement data. As you know, being a K-12 community, we take every test. These data sets that you see will have a statistical variance of 3.8 to 23% based on the number of students that take the test. So for example, in third grade there, we're missing 6 student scores from opting out. Our class sizes in 3, 4, 5 are 26. Our class sizes in 6, 7, 8 are 52. So that's just know that we have a good set of sample data, but we also have some missing kiddos, which make a difference in a small sample set. In this specific areas, we have 2 areas that I'll talk about in just a little bit further, but I'd acknowledge that in 4 out of the 6 grade levels that you see here, we meet or exceed the state average. In third grade and fifth grade, we are under the state average by 5, roughly 2.5 or 2 to 5 percentage points. So just kind of use that as an overview, and I'll break this down in a minute and re-reference these. So stop me at any point. Math, same sample set of population, that 3.8% to 23% variation of students that took the test, but we did have students that took the ELA test also take the maths test. As you can see here in fourth grade, we are 6%, roughly 6% below the state average. And then our other grade levels, we are hovering right at or above. We will come back to math kind of across the board here due to where our test scores are falling. So we always like to use that state aggregate as our comparative metric because we are a district that represents, or a school that represents, 5 member districts participating in the BOCES. So that's kind of why we use this as a comparative number, and the state uses this as a comparative number for our school performance framework. Science, they measured that on growth percentiles this year. Our kids did really well in science. We typically do very well in science. And I think that's due to the hands-on learning approach and getting kids immersed in their experiences. So great to see that, you know, over years of pandemics and interruptions, that our kids are still scoring very well in their science content. This is probably my favorite slide, and I'm gonna stand up, and I think the owl will follow me. What this is tracking is disaggregated data over multiple years of student experience. So if you were a third grader before the pandemic started in 2018-19, 68% of our kids were proficient or meet or exceeding the proficient or advanced metric on PARCC or CMATs. Then when they went to fourth graders, 65% of them remained meet or exceed, and then 60% of them were at meet or exceed. So we're maintaining student achievement at a very stable level across our disaggregated population. So 18-19, 46.2, and 19-20, 2021, we did not take the test because they didn't offer it there. And then if you pull the score from the current year, what we're not seeing here is huge regressions of students. So this is positive for students that took the test prior to and after taking the test in the current pandemic setting. So our kids that remained in our hybrid model, attending school, continuing to progress through, we're not seeing significant regression, which is something we were all very worried about. And so that is a very positive metric. In some areas, we are seeing it. Fourth grade math, you go through the proceedings, we cut about 50%. And then if you go to this year's score from the table, you'll see that as well. So this is a slide that I like to use as I write our UIP, and then I'll break this out by smaller subgroups. The nice element of this data is we do have kids that were third graders pre-pandemic, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, and we've seen them remain stable throughout their school assessment. So positive data comparison. I didn't expect to see this. So that third grader that I'm referencing there in ELA, they would now be a So third, fourth, fifth. For sixth grade last year, and I should have put this in the table, I apologize, 68%, 65.2, 60, and then bounced back up to 67.4% as a sixth grader last year. So those kids that we were very worried about, specifically in our school setting, as having gaps and sliding, we didn't see that measured as much. So some positivity that our kids that are now sitting in seventh grade classrooms that were third graders the year before the pandemic started are now doing very well. And so, 7 out of 10 of them are meeting or exceeding the standard for sixth grade ELA, which means they're coming into seventh grade with some very strong skills and scores. So I'll stop and answer any questions here.
Chad, this is Ann. Are you going to address the fourth grade math
Yep.
results? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know as address as much as acknowledge and explain next steps.
Okay. Thank you.
High school students taking the SAT. That was the entire population of 11th grade students last year. As I think you will find in many of your districts, you have very few students opt out of the PSAT, SAT cycle because they see the relevance of that. PSAT and SAT, we are achieving at or above that state mean or composite score. And I'll address that here in just a second. But it's great because you can see kids grow 986, 1042, 1034. I'll break it down in just a minute, but really hope for students to be targeting that 1100 mark. So we are very close to that composite for those students. And then once we get the opportunity to dig into this data more, we'll look specifically at the subcategory areas of, are we doing much better in reading and writing, or are we doing much better in mathematics? And those are next steps of our data analysis. So here's what we're kind of looking at with pandemic gaps versus pandemic slides and kind of breaking this apart. And so this was what I was referencing earlier of following. So if you were and I have a slide for math as well. So if you were a third grader in 1819, 54.4% proficient, you did not take the test in 1920. That was when we went into school not reopening that year. This data point, I would say, is a flashpoint because we did not have all students take the test that year. We had opt-outs of about 20%, but data is data and it helps us steer. And so that third grader is now going to be sitting in a seventh grade classroom this year, and we see some stability there. Fourth grader, test not given due to state, test not offered because we had that year where it was like, oh, you could take one, but you don't have to, or vice versa. So they didn't offer the ELA test to fifth grade or sixth grade. They offered it fifth, seventh, that particular year. And then we see these students over here, while it's quite a few years out, we're seeing really stable student achievement between 65.2% and 64.4% of where they are now. Kind of same things as our kids are getting ready to go into high school. You were a fifth grader before COVID. You didn't take the test, 53.1%. We actually came up, and then almost 70% of those students going in. So pretty positive there. Now we go to math, not as positive. I would say stable, but not as positive. So third graders, we have 2 years of gap because we have one test not administered, test not offered due to the every other year cycle, and 34.4% of those kids being proficient. So if you think about sample set of students, that's about 5 students that have regressed versus remaining at that meet or exceeds. Kind of same thing over here. We see about a 13% decrease from fourth to a seventh grader last year, that kid being an eighth grader now. And so we're seeing stable, relatively stable numbers when we talk about student achievement over multiple years. However, percentages right now, I think what Ann is referencing, our percentages now, if we were to do grade to grade, which is not the same kids, these scores are down pretty significantly. So I kind of called this gaps versus slides. So this next one kind of breaks down areas we want to target. We don't seem to have any slide between kids that have stayed with us taking English language arts over that 4-year period. We do have a slide of 5.6 to 13.1% with students over that same 4-year period. Now, what that means at Remsel is something positive, and we'll talk about celebrations and how we intend to address that in just a moment. Those are slides, and then we have gaps. And I think we have significant gaps with our 3rd grade ELA, where we're only, we don't talk about kids in halves, so we can either round them up or round them down. I like to round down when I'm trying to target improvement. So only 3 of our kids are meeting or exceeding the ELA standards, or 3.5 of them if you use 35% of a standard. What that means gap-wise is we thought that primary age students were highly impacted by the disruption of online learning, in and out of school, hybrid models. Those kids were 1st graders when the pandemic started. So that's what that parenthesis is there to reference. 5th grade, same thing. We're obviously a little higher. However, only 4 students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. Those students would have been a primary learner in grade 3 when that disruption happened. So if you think about 3rd grade being that pivotal place where we start assessing kids, where we start really forming foundational skills around early literacy, those kids missed a quarter of school, and then they went to school in a hybrid. They went to school and needing to step out and being remote at times. So not surprising, but it's great that we can now quantify what we need to be targeting versus trying to hit everyone all the time, I think is very challenging. And to address that 4th grade math score there of only 2 kids being at or meeting or exceeding expectations, those students would have been 2nd graders when COVID started. So these are our areas where you're going to see in just a minute around our celebrations and areas for improvement. These are things that are going to show up pretty significantly in our plan to address these. Celebrations. We got to celebrate. We got to keep this energy high with our teaching staff. If we come in and go, oh, 2 of your kids in 4th grade math are proficient. Now those kids are sitting in your 5th grade room. It's the first week of school. What are you going to do? I don't think that brings about a degree of positivity with lifting up all the things that they have accomplished, but we do know we're going to start breaking this data further. So celebrations, we take all 18 tests, and in 15 of the 18 areas, 83% we are at or above. If the school performance framework of my analysis, which comes out tomorrow, is accurate, we will remain accredited with distinction. So that's a embargoed information that'll come out tomorrow. I'll share that with the board, but we hold that for a couple weeks until it goes public. Middle school English language arts, we are 22.6% to 24.4% higher than the state average. So we go from this place where we have 3 students meet or exceeding to nearly 7 students meet or exceeding. So we need to lift that up. Middle school is a tough time. Middle school was a tough time during COVID. And for our kids to really step into that environment, take the ownership of demonstrating their skills and getting this recognition that they haven't, they're not in a place of such concern that we maybe initially anticipated. 100% of our kids on the SAT cycle meet or exceed the state average. No ELA pandemic slides. And we are going to celebrate. We have clear gaps for improvement. I think that's better than ambiguous places in data that we're trying to chase down. So that's kind of this next slide here of what we're doing and what we need to do next. We are so very fortunate to have mathematics and literacy intervention services. We anticipated that we would need these in increased services. So as the board approved last year, We have one additional day of mathematics literacy intervention, and we have 3 additional days of literacy intervention services. And so what we're doing is pulling students in small groups of 1 to 3, 2 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes. The reason we use that 20 to 30 minute mark is if we're pulling first graders, that 20 minutes is maximizing their attention span. But 20 minutes, 2 times a week in a small group of 1 to 3 students, really truly targeting and having your needs met. We're going to be able to measure that growth with those kids, or hope to see growth with those groups of kids throughout the years. We're going to target a 10% increase in 3rd through 8th grade mathematics. I know when you hear 10% in your districts, you're kind of looking at 10% over maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years. Know that your sample set is 15 to 90,000. Here, my sample set is 50. So I can pull 5 kids that we're targeting in these small groups, and we want to track their student achievement and growth. So 10% is ambitious, but I think it's something we can accomplish here. So you're going to see that marker kind of across the board. 10% would put us well above that state average, but it really doesn't put us into a place of being above 50%. So we want to hit 10 this year. We want to hit 10 next year. And that means that half of our student populations would be proficient or meet or exceeding that standard in mathematics. So we've got work to do in math. We've got great people. I think we have reasonable targets, and that's what those next 2 bullets are. 5 students is 10% in 6th through 8, 3 students in 3rd through 5th. So when we talk about that with teachers, when we talk about that as an improvement team, it's awesome to be able to, 1, know that child's name, know what their needs are, know how they learn, know where their schedule is. And we are excited that all of these kids after 1 week are already enrolled in their intervention services. So intervention services have already started. We're not waiting to October to break this down. We're not waiting until December. We're not trying to get kids into groups. These kids are already in groups. They're already being served. And so we hope that that's going to make a big difference of them getting 10 months of service versus 6 months of service sometimes, that when we get to break this down. We're really close. I think an 1100 SAT composite, while the SAT does not carry the same weight across the board, it does create opportunities for our kiddos. And so just continuing to have that conversation with students and staff that we are so close to that being our composite, and really supporting students and striving to get there. We work with a privatized, we work with Kaplan. They come in and give a free marketing PSAT. So we do a pre-PSAT cycle here in November with 9, 10, and 11. So kids get a chance to take it before they take it in the spring. Kaplan, as many of you know, is a service provider that once kids take the test, once they get the scores, then they probably inundate their parents with, come to this study session, buy this book, do these things. But we believe it's of benefit for kids to get to sit in that environment and take that. And then recognize success, celebrate, and repeat. If 7 out of 10 kids are, or 6.5 out of 10 kids are meeting or exceeding in middle school, there's really good stuff happening. And so I don't want us and or your leaders in your districts to get trapped in the, oh my gosh, look at this terrible gap. And what are we going to do? Like, there's great things happening. And I think as we acknowledge places for improvement, we also have to acknowledge things that are going well. So I'll stop. And I know you had some questions, other board members, and I can thumb back through. I know that was quick, but.
No, thank you. That answers my questions. I appreciate you going into that.
Anybody else have a question? The only question I had is, I know that you can't display this publicly because of the small numbers, but I'd be curious to know how you're tracking the SPED students with disabilities, students who are multilingual learners. And I know because of the small sample size, you can't put it up here because it would identify who they are. But just, I would like to know just how because I know you've done a lot of work on that and thinking about that.
So Carrie's we didn't even talk about this at our meeting last week, but she's 2 steps ahead of me.
Okay, sorry.
And which is awesome.
But I know that
So
that's-
our next step, as we came out of the IGA process, and I probably should have started with that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Public viewing, school district leadership, board members here today, board members that were unable to attend. Thank you for your acknowledgement, your support, your belief in that providing alternative educational opportunities to kids is important. School choice is important because we know that we all don't learn the same way. And some kids learn very well in this environment. Some kids learn very well in neighborhood environments, school pathway environments within your schools, STEM environments, arts environments. So thank you for your support there. As part of that IGA process, we identified that we need to create within our unified improvement plan our equity position. And I call it a position because we want to be naming our standard level disaggregated groups. So what we want to do is go even one step further, is we want to look at our special needs populations, our students by race and ethnicity, in comparison to a student achievement gap that may be present. So we're going to break that down on the back end, and we're going to report those things into a way of non-disclosure into our unified improvement plan. So those elements that the board asked for about our work around our Black student populations, our Latino and Latinx student populations, our Asian student populations, our Indigenous populations, and then our special education populations. What we will do to be able to report this at a public level in this document is we'll collapse grade levels 3 through 5, like they do on the school performance framework, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. And so it gives us a large enough sample population that you would not be identifying a single child. What we want to do on the back end of that is we want to do standard level disaggregated data, where we look at each standard and we can give teachers some quick information of, if you're in mathematics and you're teaching 4th grade mathematics, where we have 24% meet or exceeds, oh my gosh, it's because none of us were proficient in geometry. Okay, let's look at our scope and sequence. We'll look at our geometry standard. Let's look at our resources and materials. Okay, what can we do specifically to target our work at a standard level? Because we don't want to be over here doing number sense and order of operation till we're purple in the face, if we really need to be targeting the fact that time and disruption really needed to be around. Hey guys, let's do some surface area and volume, and we need to be out in the parking lot. And project I taught when I had to teach a few years ago is how many tennis balls fit in a Rimsel bus. So it's I think we need to be smart at a standard level and then smart at a student population level. So that's what we're going to write into our unified improvement plan, which we will have done by October to have to the board for review. And then we will also look at those equity analysis subcategories that when we did our equity audit a few years ago, we want to look at access, opportunity for students to take coursework. We are a single course of study environment, so opportunity is not extremely diverse because we don't have a lot of classes, but that means all students are together. We do have some areas where students can take math in a group by project or by unit. So we'll look at that information, students that are enrolling in concurrent enrollment options. We have students that have elected to take ASL with Cherry Creek School District through Elevation. So we really maximize this BOCES partnership. We've really kind of done that initial spot check with student achievement, but we want to get down a little lower. And then we need to dig into our conduct and discipline, of which in conduct and discipline, one thing we want to look comparatively at is student attendance. Our student attendance is very high. So we need to leverage attendance. And if we have gaps of, oh my gosh, got a lot of 10th graders that missed the first 2 periods. Okay, we're missing 20% of the day. How do we make sure we're looking at attendance down to a tardy level? So this is the work that the board will see to address the intentions of the board and the districts around our equity position and our unified improvement plan. And I will have that ready in October. Right. We are doing very well. Strategic plan. I'll bring that to the BOCES for final report and vote in September. We will publicly post that. It will be included in our UIP, and then we will address breaking out my goals as tied to that for the duration of the school year. Thank you for the board for working on that so diligently. The plan is in a great place. I know that it got disrupted with IGA and other pieces, feedback from the community, feedback from this board, feedback from our staff. We're ready to do that work. And so our plan is in a great place. And so in September, we are ready to vote and approve that document. Okay. I'll hit on the places that we're struggling. And I know that many of you are struggling in your districts. I've seen staffing impacts of, our support staff members who make schools happen. Our bus drivers, our custodial support staff, those that work in our lunchrooms, those are our paraprofessionals. And so my heart goes out to all of us who are working through this unprecedented time. We've never had a time. We get to live through unprecedented times of, we've never had an unemployment rate at 4%, but also be teetering on an economic recession. And how do we put people into roles and jobs? Your districts are increasing pay, providing services. Want to start with the positive. All of our associate teachers positions are filled. We pay those teachers $20 an hour. And one thing that we did, instead of trying to gradually increase that hourly rate by 10 cents or 15 cents or 17 cents or 37 cents to try to be competitive, because I can't compete with you all. Sorry. You're doing a bad back. Are we good with? Oh, okay. Oh, she's on. Okay.
I was frozen for a little bit.
Okay. Well, it flashed off my screen that the owl decided it didn't like us.
Okay.
One staffing impact we had is we've transitioned director of adventure program. We have hired a new director of adventure program. So I am training that individual and working closely with our program. Spent a significant amount of time this summer in logistics, safety, human resources, and planning. And so our first group of students, all 100 high school students, are on the Colorado River from Grand Junction, and they're headed over to Westwater, Utah right now. So they're on their way. Next week, 50 students will head backpacking from Kenosha Pass to Georgia Pass, basically 285 into Tiger Road at Breckenridge, and then 2 groups stand-up paddleboarding and climbing in Wyoming. So excited for Brett to come on board with us and be working with us. So that is no longer an impact, but it will be just kind of training and supporting. And the next one is an impact. We're working with our LEA and DPS around this impact. We are absent a K-6 learning specialist right now. We have 2 private staffing groups that we have contracts out with. We are offering hiring bonuses for that position. But if I like being a realist. I reached out to a former contact, colleague, professional at the University of Denver. They are offering a special education licensure program. They had 6 students graduate from that program last year. So as we are looking to fill upward of 200 jobs across the state in the specific area, know that the real numbers versus the need numbers are pretty far apart. So not positive, how we're managing this. We're very fortunate that our director of elementary education also has a special education licensure and background. So Lindsay is serving in the capacity of case manager for 20 students right now. So running IEP meetings, making sure we progress monitor their goals, and doing that within her state licensure. We're serving those kids instructionally with our interventionists. So we are breaking those kids out to small targeted groups. So if they have a goal in mathematics, they're being taught by a certified math teacher. If they have a goal in literacy, they're being taught by a certified literacy teacher. So we are serving our kids right now. It is less than perfect in staffing and needs. So we are continuing to look for that person. We had someone apply on Friday. So we are frantically trying to communicate with the candidate prior to you all communicating with the candidate. Sorry. And then we're DPS as our LEA provides an SN para to a specific student, and that that position remains vacant right now, but our associate teacher is working closely with that child in the classroom. So our kids are being served. We're serving to the degree that our conditions provide, but certainly, I know you all don't have a magic solution to this. So being a realist, we're doing our best. I think the students are doing well, but we've got 2 national recruiting firms trying to find people, trying to get them to move here. I think that national recruiting specialist has a challenging position to try to sell someone to move to a metro area with a median home price of $670 on a Colorado teaching salary. If that national recruiting specialist can put them in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so just want you to know that we're trying every avenue. And when we have a change, we'll let the board know.
For a viewing audience, do you want to explain what the difference between an associate teacher and a regular teacher is?
Sure. So our associate teachers are what we used to have in the classroom as educational assistants, and 2 of our 3 educational assistants elected to remain with us, and 2 of those 3 actually have teaching license. They're just serving in that co-teaching role in 1st grade, 2nd and 3rd grade, and 4th and 5th grade.
Thank you.
So that breaks our staffing ratio down in the classroom in those rooms, with the associate teacher in there for all of the academic blocks to 1 to 13.
One of the things that I think my question's been
Sure.
answered, I nationwide, I've read enrollments down, declining. Teachers are, all of our school districts are facing, we don't have enough teachers. So my question is it because we have so many specialized teachers? Do we now have classroom teachers having to wear several hats? Because they might have to pick up that specialized. Is that our issue with
So-
our teachers, or do we not have people going into teaching anymore? Well,
That's partially true.
Mhm.
Being in the
Yeah.
teacher education program professor, I know that our numbers have decreased significantly at the University of Denver.
do we know if it's pay or environment or what? Did we get any of that kind of feedback?
I can't give you a 100% objective answer to that. So I'll give you statistics that we collect here from our teaching staff. 100% of our teaching staff say that this is a good place to learn and work within. 100% of our teaching staff say that they trust the leadership. And so TLCC survey, we have a good, strong school culture here.
Mhm.
We're not seeing teachers that transition from Remsel transitioning to your district. What we are seeing is them leave the profession. So that's not a good statistic. And I don't know if that's a statistic you all can track within your HR departments, because we obviously read the headlines where it's, oh, well, Littleton's going over to Denver, Denver's going over to Douglas, Douglas is going over to Cherry Creek. I don't know if that within your districts and a larger sample population is a true statistic. So I would encourage your HR specialists to dig into that for the services of their own work, and you all as board leadership of, okay, yep, everybody ran. We'll say they ran to Aurora because Nichelle's not here today. So, but what that, I think that's one thing that we see here. I know expressed wise from our teaching staff is around time and how we support their time. One thing we're doing that we didn't speak to today that I'd like to take the opportunity to now is we've eliminated, we are on a 72-hour email return for teachers. So they'll return a parent email within 3 days. What we're doing to more efficiently use that time is we have open conferences every day from 3 to 3:25 after school. So parents can come in directly into the building and speak with the teacher. All of our kids get picked up here in some fashion, and or open phone lines. We know that a human to human interaction normally closes a conversation much quicker than a teacher or professional stewing on, I read this email, I feel like this parent's really upset, how do I respond to it? And I take 30 minutes of my 75-minute plan time doing email. So far, so good. Parents have been coming in. Teachers are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I have less. And so email wasn't a thing in the teacher profession 10, 15 years ago. And so we want to value our teachers' planning time as professionals. And I've explained to our parents, and they've been very welcoming to it, of, the reason we're doing this is to not ignore your concerns. One, we want to hear your concerns immediately. And two, we want to value our teachers as professionals to have that time. So I think we've tried to maximize teacher time. Teachers only have one 25-minute duty per week, where they're outside or inside at lunch. So we try to really minimize that disruption to them. And then, don't want to go down the road of polarizing in any type of political way, left or right. But if you got that Tabor check in the mail, it stung a little bit. I know that we appreciated receiving it. I know that individuals have mixed opinions on that. But, we are funding, roughly $2,500 to $4,000 below the median average of education funding. What that means is you can go teach in Bloomington, Indiana. You can make more money. Your cost of living is roughly 300% less. Last time I looked at the school finance project chart, we're right at 10 before mill levies and support. They're at 12.5. If you can cut your cost of living so significantly and increase. So teacher pay is it's critical, it's crucial. I don't think anyone in any of our respective counties, our voter subgroups, it's basic math. I mean, how do you live here making, $60,000 a year when your cost of living is so significant? I'll give the board an update at our next board meeting on inflation impacts to RIMSL. Fuel costs are up 100%. Food for crew trips is up 25%. Support staff were paying 25% more to be out with us. We didn't increase the fieldwork fee, not positioning us for any warning sign that we're trying to increase fees, but I think we're going to have to get smarter of how we utilize. What does that mean for trips? What does that mean for distance? What does that mean for places? But to try to give you some objective data, those are some flashpoints for us. And then I would say subjectively, it's really hard to live here, folks. I get to be fortunate of starting year 19. I was here when the cost of living was significantly less. If we're bringing new teachers into the profession, Denver was a desirable marketplace. It's beautiful, tons of recreation, 300 days of sunshine. All the things in the brochure are still wonderful here. The thing in the brochure that's a little different is what it costs to be here. So I think to me, two things. Declining enrollment is coming for everyone. I think the declining enrollment statistics in your district are inaccurate. I don't mean to steer this meeting to your districts versus our own districts. But if you use Jeffco's data points as where they are moving from 100,000 to 70,000 kids in less than 5 years, I think that's a real concern when we're making statistical analysis of 5%. 5% would be 5,000 kids out of 100,000 kids. They've lost 30,000, 30,000 into your budgets, staffing people in communities, buses, everything that makes a district go around is tied to number of kids. So I would just, express reservations when you receive that data that it could be, maybe you want to a red, yellow, green data chart of here's green where we think reality is, here's yellow where reality could be, here's red where these are big pieces.
Something you said in the beginning, thank you, from a former educator, recognizing the time that teachers need in preparation instead of the training and getting them ready for school. It's important.
Thank you. Well, that's all I have for today. We are going to try to be at an hour for our meetings throughout the year. And we're going to try to target that time. If we would need to ever add a special meeting, we can do that in a virtual setting to be respectful. I think our audience, the OWL, thank you for joining us and making this meeting more successful. So we will, when we have our open meeting with Open Forum, we'll be in a classroom and we'll work this into that environment with the television setting and others. I hope that this was informative of where we are and hopefully for next steps of where we want to go. And then just a couple little captures from our trip. We had 5 staff on paddleboards throughout the trip, and that was our campsite on the last night as we continued with no cell phone service. So this is a special place. It's a special place for kids. It's a special place for staff, as are all of your school districts. Your teachers are doing great work. They're building capacity. They're growing kids. They're taking care of people. This is a tough business. It's a rewarding business. It's a calling, not a career. Special place. So if anyone would like to join me and do a little school tour, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I'll let Carrie, you take that.
Annie, I just want to check with Ann. Did you have anything you wanted to add? I don't want you to feel like we're
No, this has been great. Thank you, Chad, and thanks to the rest of you. I'm sorry to miss the tour this morning, but hopefully I can join at a later date.
Anytime.
Thank you. And just thank you, Chad. I really appreciate how organized the data is, and just the fact that you dig into it so deeply. I knew once it came out, I knew you would do this. So I really appreciated it. Helps. Then we don't have to go hunting for what we need. So and thank you for your leadership. It does, I feel like there's a positive energy that's happening, not just here, but I feel with some of my friends who are former teachers as well. I think the issues. So thank you.
I know we're feeling positive in our district. I think districts are, believe it or not, because of the pandemic, it's made everyone realize, okay, school's not so bad. Right? And then because they need it, they want it.
We just do need to pay teachers.
Oh, I know.
School staff.
We agree. I agree.
So.
I'm going to call adjourn at 7:56. All right. Close this.
Thank you, Ann.
Stop.
Everybody.
Bye, Ann.